Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Art of Business webinar. My name is Brooke Quinn, and I am a business development representative at the Lake Superior Community Partnership. Before we get started, I'm going to let you know about some housekeeping rules. This webinar may be a little shorter than our allotted time period, but that's okay. If you do have any questions during the webinar, there is a question box at the bottom of your screen. If you do have a question, feel free to ask at any time. I will see the questions as they come in, and I will answer them during or at the end of the webinar. My contact information, along with other members of the business development team, will be at the end as well. During this webinar, I will be going through some of the topic discussions to starting a business. These topics include organizational types, where to file and other state and federal filings, sales and use tax, pricing, and additional resources that are available. To start off, this slide shows the two most common small business organizations. The first being a sole proprietor, also known as a doing business as, or a DBA, and the other is a limited liability company. For a DBA, this form will be filled out at the county clerk's office. It is one of the easier forms to fill out and can be completed in one day. A DBA can last also up to 5 years before it needs to be renewed. And when the time does come, a notice will be sent to you to reapply. And one thing to note about a DBA is that it only covers the county in which you file the form in. For example, if a business filed in Marquette County, or business is filed in Marquette County, the license is only covered in Marquette County and throughout Marquette County. If you are looking to extend your business or wanting to set up shop in other counties within the UP or in the state, a DBA may not be the best option to choose. However, a DBA through Marquette County is very cost effective. This only costs $10 to file, but this will vary from county to county. This is a one-time fee, which is beneficial, but it will expire within 5 years, like I mentioned earlier. This is something that will also be filed individually on your tax returns. And when you are doing your tax returns, it would say, for example, ABC company doing business as XYZ company. And the second most common type of entity formed is a limited liability company or an LLC. This form can be filed for $50 on your own directly with the state and can be just as cost effective. This form will need to be renewed annually and will cost $25 to do so. The renewal will secure the name of the business and protect other individuals from taking that name. And I will talk more later about where to file and what to look for when choosing a business name. And the LLC can also be filed on your individual tax returns. And when filing, unlike a DBA, this can take up to 5 to 7 business days to be approved by the state. It may take longer depending on how busy the state is. There have been times when LLCs have been received the same day or even a day later. It really just all depends on how busy the state is when going through the filings. And another great benefit to an LLC is the amount of protection that it can provide. And a way to look at that is with the LLC protection, it keeps you and the business separate. For example, let's say I opened XYZ business and then someone is suing me for an injury that happened at my business. With an LLC, they would be suing XYZ business first, whereas with a DBA, the person would be suing you directly since you are doing business as yourself. Although these two are the most common for small businesses, there are other organization structures, such as corporations, nonprofits, and the newest one is an L3C, which is a hybrid to a nonprofit and a for-profit. When filing for an LLC, the state has made it much easier to do so. The LLC filing can be done either online or can be submitted through the mail. To file, you would go through LARA, which is the Licensing and Regulatory Affairs through the state of Michigan, and go to their corporate division page. and you would choose how you would like to file, whether it be online or through the mail. And a few things to consider when applying for an LLC would be doing a business entity search. A simple search can be done on the corporate division page as well. And the reason being is to make sure the name in which you are wanting to choose isn't already taken in some way, shape, or form. A business name may seem unique, and when you do search the database, there could be 20 different organizations within the state with some variation of that name. And this leads to the next point of when initially searching for a name, always have a backup just in case there are numerous businesses with the same name or some variation of it. And LLC and DBA filings are not the only filings that need to be considered when starting a business. After the LLC or DBA is filed and set up, on this slide are the other files that need to be taken into consideration. And these 3 sites are all things that the LSCP can assist you with. And I will show you the 3 links and what each website does look like. So the first link is to the IRS page for your federal EIN number. And this is fairly consider your social security number for your business. And this can be used to open up a bank account for your business, as well as applying for sales tax or use tax, which I will get into later today. And filing for your federal EIN through the IRS is a very simple form. Yet it can be very tricky and very nitpicky when it comes to what needs to be put into it, but it is the simplest out of the 3 to file. The main reason being is that it is difficult. And I do recommend waiting until you get your LLC or your DBA filed first. And the main reason being is that if anything gets kicked back in any way, shape, or form from the state, whether you need to change your name or there is something you need to add to it or add like a the to it or a small word to it, it is very much easier to change through the state and through the county and make that change, whether it is through the IRS page. It'll take a very lengthy time and it will take a lot longer to change this. So I would recommend waiting until you have your documentation done first before you apply for your federal EIN, and that can save you a lot of time. And the second link is the Michigan Treasury online page. This is where you would apply for the sales tax and use tax information. And once you have the information, you can log into the site and where you would report your tax information. And this can be paid monthly, quarterly, or even annually, depending on however you would like your payment set up. And this third link is provided, shows the sales tax that can be streamlined. And this site makes it very easy for you that when you're selling in multiple states. And this gives the advantage of logging into just one site instead of multiple locations and allows you to pay your sales tax through all the states that you're selling in. And if you're selling through Etsy or Amazon, which are multiple locations, for example, and it is required to pay sales tax in each state that they have a warehouse located, this site makes it much easier for you to use. And now we're going to dive right into sales tax. Oops. Okay. All right, so now we're gonna dive right into sales tax, which is fun. First up is sales tax, which is the 6% tax that is paid to the state for any tangible good that is sold. And it is required to be collected, to collect this from the consumer if you are acting as the retailer. And this can be paid annually, quarterly, or monthly, depending on or through the MTO site, which we just went through. And if you are a one-time vendor, such as if you are working at the Christmas craft show or local farmers market here in town for a day, you would fill out the 2271 form and file those within the 3 days of the event that you're working at. Use tax is the tax that is required to be paid for items purchased out of state that you do not need to pay sales tax on. And let's say I purchased 10 picture frames from Ohio and I did not pay sales tax on those frames. And I bring those back to Michigan. I decorate them with flowers, UP logo, anything like that. And I go to sell them. I would be required by the state to pay sales tax to Michigan on what I did purchase. And one thing to note is that it is either one or the other. It is never both. You would not have to pay 2 types of tax. You would not have to pay, if you are paying sales tax, you do not need to pay use tax. And if you're paying sales tax or use tax, you do not need to pay sales tax later on. Another note is taking the same example. If I do pay sales tax on the frames I purchased in Ohio, and let's say the sales tax is 5%, then I go to sell them in Michigan where it is 6% sales tax, I am required by law for myself to pay the 1% difference to the state of Michigan. This can be confusing, and the tax website has more information that can help you kind of decipher everything as well. Now, when it comes to pricing your product, it is what we are going to talk about next. And this can be more of an art than a science. So we're going to shift gears a little bit. Where it can be tricky is when we talk more about overhead and labor costs. We do have a spreadsheet that will make this seem much simpler than it sounds, and it will be sent to you later on as well. And when plugging in the information, it is good to know what the data actually is you are working with. Materials is one of them. Materials is an important piece and what would be put into the main cost of your product. Are they buttons, thread, fabric? Materials are what would make up the product you are selling. And if I were selling picture frames and bought 10 of frames for $10, I would price them at $1 per product. Labor is another tricky thing, but time is money, and there is a vast range of discussion on how to decipher what to charge for labor costs. The most common is between $10 to $20, depending on what you are making. There is a big difference, however, with putting 100% of your focus into making the product versus something that is being created in your spare time. And what I'm meaning by this is if I am on my lunch break or watching Netflix while knitting a sweater, I am not 100% focused on what I'm doing during that time, but I am focused on knitting the sweater all day. Then if I am focused on knitting that sweater all day, then I would want to look at a higher wage range. If I'm not too focused, I might want to look at maybe $4 to $5 an hour. Once you have the information in there, you would want to do a price comparison on the product price to make sure it is favorable to your competitors. And then next would be packaging. This would depend if you are doing some time or some type of packing for your product or not a standalone product that would need packaging or not need packaging. Packing would need to be factored into the price as well. And shipping would be put into the price too if your business does do shipping. Overhead is one that can be confusing, but it does not have to be. There is a lot that goes into this category, such as rent, marketing, utilities, equipment, and websites. And those are just a few that go into overhead costs. And when thinking of overhead, one thing to consider is when you are making the product, is it in a studio, your home, or if so, then there will be some math involved with figuring out that price. And we do love math. And if you are creating it in your home, you would take the monthly mortgage divided by the square foot of the house, and then take the square footage of the room you are working in and come up with the monthly rent for the room for yourself. And this will be the same for utilities. Also included, to name a few, would be domain and maintenance cost. And I understand this is a lot of information, and the LSCP can help you navigate this as well. And when diving into wholesale pricing, this is where you would sell your finished product to a retailer. And this cost would usually cost less than what you would charge to the end user, since the retailer will mark up the price of the product to the consumer. The formula listed on the slide is what you would use to find the wholesale price. And to find that price, it would be the cost of materials plus the labor plus expenses and plus the markup for profit, which I will explain in a little bit. For, let's say you are selling directly to the consumer, you would want to look at the wholesale price and times that by 2 if you're going to be acting as the retailer. We do suggest multiplying by 2 as a baseline to then compare your price to competitors. And everything that I am discussing today is very broad, so keep that in mind. Another thing to consider in your pricing would be your margins. And the margins would be the price you are selling your product for minus the cost it would be to manufacture the product. As your efficiency grows, so will your margins. An example would be if I am making widgets, I would start out by making only 4 an hour. So 2 years later, and I am making 20 widgets an hour. As my efficiency grows, I want to increase my margin because I have improved from where I started. Now I'm going to show you the spreadsheet that I mentioned earlier that's going to show all of this as an example. So this spreadsheet makes it simple to input your numbers and does the majority of the work for you. There are formulas in the cells which make it easy to input numbers and at the bottom of the spreadsheet. In the cells I have one that is completed for an example, which I'll showcase here. Oops. And these costs include rent, marketing, business cards, and equipment. And this cost adds up to $350 for a yearly overhead cost. And my overhead costs per item are per year per item. And since it's already calculated for me, it would be $1.75. Under labor, I have put how long it takes for me to do each part of the bag, which adds up to 20 minutes. So it takes 5 minutes to do fabric selection, 5 minutes to do cutting and sewing, and then another 5 for packaging and shipping. And that I would put my 20 minutes per hour. And then under labor, for this example, I put my hourly rate as $20. So my labor cost would be $6.67. Below that, I calculated my total break-even point, which would be $10.12. And like I mentioned, under the profit margin, this percentage can be changed. But for this example, I put my profit margin at 50%. And here we took the margin and times that by the break-even price to get the profit of $5.06. And this is a price where I would want to make each bag that I make. And below, that would be the price with the profit margin. So it would be $15.18. And to go even further, here is the price I would want to sell my bag at. To a wholesaler, and if I was acting as the retailer, I would want to sell it at $40.47 to sell directly to the consumer. All of the darker numbers will automatically be calculated for you. The other numbers that are all in blue, you would have to put in manually. And this spreadsheet will again be emailed out as a reminder to you as well. In addition to what the resources the LSCP does provide, the Michigan Economic Development Corporation has funding options such as Capital Access Program, which is a program based on helping businesses in need of capital and can be used to assist in financing most types of businesses. On top of funding options, the MEDC has their entrepreneurial support system, and this can be assisting in research and finding the right support for your businesses. The LSCP also has additional resources in funding, but here is statewide resources that the Michigan Economic Development Corporation does provide as well for startups. And here is the contact information for our business development team. If you do have any questions about anything, please do contact us. I know this can seem very overwhelming, and we are more than happy to help your business getting set up. And at this time, I will be looking at some of the questions that were submitted. Oops. Okay. I do have one question. Someone in the audience asked, how long does it take to get your sales tax information? This one is one of the lengthier time of process to get your information from. After you file for your DBA or LLC and your EIN filed, you would go and apply for your sales tax information. And this can be up to 3 to 4 weeks to receive. Even though you may not have your sales tax number in hand, that doesn't mean you can't sell your products. As long as you do have your confirmation number that you've applied for your sales tax, you can still do your business. And it looks like that is the only question. I will be sending out the slides, the presentation, along with the spreadsheet that was mentioned below or in the presentation. And if you do have any questions, again, do feel free to contact us at any point in time. And have a wonderful day, everybody.